he's definitely in that conversation for, if you do that, he's definitely wide receiver 3 flex.
Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, I like Courtland Sutton. I think he's out of all the receivers in Denver, he's been the guy, with the exception of 1 year, because this will be his 7th year. He's been the guy that's been on the field the most. I mean, last year he played 16 games. The year before, 15. Played a full season in 2021. He was out for he only played 1 game in 2020 after an injury, but before that he played 16 and 16. So I think that this guy's going to stay healthy. I think that the year that he was out was kind of a fluky kind of a deal and stuff with his injury. He's definitely their wide receiver 1. I view Sutton as a potential wide receiver 2 flex guy, depending on who you have on your team. Uh, I think it all depends on how the quarterback position shakes out. After yesterday, I kind of get a sense that Bo Nix is going to be their starting quarterback. I think we just have to wait and see. He had a tremendous game yesterday. I think Sean Payton's really high on Bo Nix. It would not surprise me that Sean Payton goes with Bo Nix this year. We'll just have to wait and see. But out of all the receivers on Denver, I think Sutton's they got Troy Franklin, who's a rookie. This is Mims's second year. Tim Patrick was hurt last year. He did an ACL. So Sutton is the guy that's definitely locked in at number 1 for them. And, they got to throw somebody. So.
Well, and he's a big body, too. Like, he's got a lot of upside with touchdown value. I mean, look at it last year, 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had 10 touchdowns.
He's a big frame.
Definitely, like I said, I definitely consider him a wide receiver 2. I would feel comfortable with him as a wide receiver 2. Just because I definitely think that he's the best receiver out of all the receivers on Denver's team.
Yeah, and he's easily the best. I think behind him personally would be Josh Reynolds, but time will tell. I think from a touchdown perspective, we'll probably see another 7 or 8 touchdowns from him this year. I could actually see him having over 1,000 yards receiving this year, and probably like another 15 receptions that he had last year. So probably around like that 75 range of receptions. I could see him breaking top 30, but I think right now sitting at that 40 spot's a pretty comfortable spot.
I agree.
For me, it'd probably be more of a flex option. I don't know if I'd put him in a wide receiver 2, maybe a low end receiver 2, but back to our Green Bay debate, we kind of touched on Watson quite a bit.
Yeah, you know what? I like Christian Watson. I think the guy has got a tremendous amount of talent. I think that he just needs to stay on the field. I mean, 2022 he missed 3 games. He had 611 yards and 7 touchdowns. Last year he only played in 9 games, 422 yards on 28 receptions and 5 touchdowns. He's a big receiver. He's definitely a red zone target. He just needs to stay on the field. Yeah. Personally, after looking at everything, I think there might be a couple guys I'd put above him. Given the fact that I think that they could be above him. The reason I put him where I did is because I think he's definitely got a more solid QB situation in Green Bay than some of these other guys have. So to me, as much as it hurts to say and talk about a Packer, that's why I put him there. He definitely has potential to break the top 40. I had him at 37, but it all depends on if he's on the field. He certainly needs to be on your bench and to draft. If he stays healthy and he's out there, I mean, he's definitely got to be a flex option depending on your choices, because he is a red zone guy, and
he's a big frame.
If he stays out there for a full season, the guy could have 10 touchdowns or more.
Another big frame, 6'4", just like Courtland Sutton. So big bodies are always nice to have in that red zone because you can get the ball to places where defenders can't get to it. So like if
Well, and
Watson's healthy,
he's proven that he's great in the red zone.
well,
too.
yeah, even in his 9 games he played, he had 5 touchdowns. You're talking like basically every other game he had a touchdown, and that he probably would have been at 10 touchdowns if he was healthy all year last year
Yeah, no,
and the year before. So I think with us having him here at the 39 spot, it's pretty good. I think we both kind of expect him to miss a game or two this year, just because of his injury history. But even in that time, I could still see.
Well,
him
he said
having
he's
10
got it
touchdowns.
figured out, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, didn't he go down like the other day in practice at one point? But
Yeah, it was nothing big.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, personally, I think I got Kirk too high. I don't think he's going to be in the top 40. I think Brian Thomas is definitely going to take away from him. I think Evan Ingram is going to take away from him. They brought in Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis has the potential to, has potential for sure. I'm not a huge Kirk fan. I definitely think I have him ranked too high after looking at this. I think, maybe top 50 between 45 and 50. I think that might be a stretch. He did have the 1 year in Jacksonville where he had 8 touchdowns back in 2022, but that was before they brought in Ridley, right? Yep. And then I don't even know if they had Ingram back in 2022. I think Ingram was just there last year.
Oh, he was there.
Okay, so he was there. So at any rate, I just but I think Brian Thomas is another one of these rookie wide receivers that is only going to get better throughout the season. He's going to take away from Kirk. So I'm not too high on Kirk this year. I need to see more from him. I don't really necessarily view Kirk as a number one receiver. That is just me. I don't view him as a number one receiver. I think Kirk is, I just don't view him as a number one receiver. So,
I mean, me personally, I think he's right where he should be, obviously, 38, but I think in his time in Jacksonville, he's had a pretty solid connection with Trevor Lawrence. I think that will continue. I see him around, another 8, 9, 1,000 yards, somewhere in that range. And I see him with 5 or 6 touchdowns. Maybe 7. I don't know. It kind of depends, but
yeah, and I should say he did miss 5 games last year. He was only out there for 12 games, so that impacted his production.
Yeah.
But with that being said, in his 6 years playing, he's only had 2 seasons that he's played a full season.
So he does need to be fully healthy, but I could see him being a top 40 guy. I could see him, pushing 35 range. Like you said, though, Brian Thomas will take away reps. Gabe Davis will as well. I wouldn't put him anywhere near his top 15 finish he had with Trevor Lawrence's first year in Jacksonville, but I could totally see him being in this top 40 range. I think right at 38 is probably a pretty good spot.
I will say this, out of the years that Trevor's been there, this is probably his best receiving, one of his best receiving crews. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think last year's was pretty good. He didn't capitalize on what he had.
Time will tell.
Jordan Addison. This is where I think we could probably have Jacoby Myers, probably at like 38 right next to Addison here.
Listen, I think Jordan Addison has a great amount of potential. He jumped in there last year for the Vikings. He had 70 receptions for over 900 yards. He had 10 touchdowns. He's definitely their wide receiver too. With that being said, Jordan Addison is in the doghouse, people. Let me just say that. He is not, he's had off the field issues, which the Vikings are not happy with. He's got receivers that are nipping at the tail, at his coattails right now. Jalen Naylor being one of them. Anybody that watched the game yesterday, Naylor was out there. I mean, Naylor looked really good. Tristan Jackson looked really good. Addison played yesterday with the number ones. He was the number one receiver because they obviously didn't play Jefferson. Addison had one reception. Okay, it's preseason. I get it. Here's my concern with Addison. Addison, yes, he had a great year last year. I think he's got a lot of talent. I really do. I just wonder how he's gonna do. Um, you know, when he's great as a complement to Jefferson, but is he going to be able to get that separation on double teams if he's double teamed? How is he? Is he going to be able to maintain that? Is he going to be able to stay, out of trouble off the field? The Vikings have already said one more strike and you're out. So I think that if he stays healthy, which we can say, which he did last year, he definitely is going to be the Vikings wide receiver too.
Oh yeah,
I definitely see that. Could he have the same year? Time will tell. Last year he had Kirk Cousins thrown to him. That's why he was targeted over 100 times. This year it's hard to say. He's got Darnell. We got McCarthy. We don't know which one of them is going to be the starting quarterback. I think that's going to have a lot to say with, with how Addison does. Me personally, I think McCarthy starts, Addison could probably have a better season. If Darnell ends up starting right off the gate, I think initially, I think Addison isn't gonna. He's gonna have a slow start. Personally, that's just my opinion. I do think that he has breakaway speed. He does have potential to get 10 touchdowns. I think it just all depends on who the quarterback is. I think we got him where he should be. Looking at this, I definitely think he could be a top 40. If anybody from the Vikings organization is watching, please, call San Francisco. Maybe an Ayuk for Addison trade. Just saying.
Yeah, he could definitely be a receiver on the trade block here, especially with how unhappy everyone is with his off-field issues. But I agree with you. I think we have him right where he should be. For me personally, I had him at 39. I think he might even be a little lower because I don't think his touchdown production is going to be there. And truthfully, I think he's not going to have 70 receptions this year. I think he'd be lucky to hit 60. I think the quarterback situation is just a little tough going into the year, and I could totally even see these wide receiver threes or four with Naylor and Jackson, even Sherfield, maybe chip away a little bit at his production. I think the main guy on this offense is still going to be the man himself in Jefferson.
I consider Addison a flex option because you got to give him at least a flex option because last year he did have 10 touchdowns. Yeah. So any given game he could score a touchdown.
A few of those
with
games
his
were
speed.
2-touchdown games.
So I think he's definitely a flex. Until we see the quarterback situation shake out, I don't think there's any discussion with him being any higher than that until we see how that shakes out.
Yeah. Chris Godwin.
I know a lot of people are high on Godwin. Last year he did have over 1,000 yards, 83 receptions. It was his first healthy season.
2018.
Yeah, so if he stays healthy, I definitely think he has an opportunity to break the top 30. I know, most people have him, around that top 30 range. I ranked him around 39, and I know Wiggs had him a little bit higher. I think we got him in a good spot. I think he is a wide receiver too. I definitely think that he's definitely a wide receiver too. The only thing I don't like about Godwin is over the last several years, he just hasn't had the TD production. The last time he scored over 5 touchdowns was back in 2020. 2021 he had 5. The last 2 years he's only had 2 and 3 touchdowns. In PPR you want those guys touchdowns route. Now he makes up for it with targets because last year he got targeted 130 times. 142 in 2022, 128 in 2021. He would have been over 100 targets in 2020 if he was out on the field the whole season. He had over 120 when he was only playing 14 games back in 2019. So I definitely think Godwin is a wide receiver too, given your situation and stuff like that. And if he stays out on the field like he did last year, I definitely could see him over 1,000 yards again for sure. I think they got Baker Mayfield, who showed last year he's got a connection with both Godwin and Evans. Like I said, the only thing that shies me away from him a little bit is his TD production, but he makes up for it in the amount of receptions and targets that he gets. So I think he definitely has potential to be in the top 30, but I think we got him in a good spot.
I think even top 20 potential if he gets the touchdown production. Because you look at his stats, he's, for the most part, even when fighting injuries, right around that 1,000-yard mark every year. And having that many targets, literally, like, if he just catches a few more of those, like, that's another point, So, like, if he gets targeted just as much as he has been the last few years and stays on the field, I mean, even in his years where he's hurt, he's getting targeted 130 times, which is nuts.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I probably rated him just a little bit too low. He definitely, to me, is above Addison.
Yeah.
I think at the time I was thinking Addison, with the touchdown production, but, I can see that I may have ranked him a little bit too low. So I definitely think his arrow is going up.
Yeah, and like I said, I could definitely see him being top 20 if he gets the touchdown production behind it. I think Mike Evans does a great job at getting him open, so I think that's why we see so many targets behind him. Does Mike Evans get the same amount of targets?
136. Mike Evans, yeah, and Mike Evans gets all the red zone stuff.
Yeah, so
I mean, Mike Evans had 13 touchdowns last year. So.
I could definitely see Godwin being a top 20 guy. I definitely would draft him. I could 100% agree with the wide receiver too. If you had the depth on your team, like if he's your third receiver you draft,
then you put him in a flex.
Yeah, there's your flex right there. Like definitely wide receiver 2 potential. I think he's the first one of this list